Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another live edition of Restaurant Success Club. Very excited to be here today. We'll be talking about why you should attend special events like shows that restaurants put on. And today I have three great guests, friends of mine that will be speaking at a conference together. But really first, let's go around the room, talk about who you are and what you do, and then we'll jump in. We'll start with you, Matt.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Rolfe. I'm a hospitality leadership coach. I help people focus on their people strategies and then connect it to execution, mainly on attraction, retention, and guest experience.
Scott?
Thank you. I was waiting to see who went next. Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Turner. I am the founder of Auden Hospitality. We are rewriting the rules of hotel food and beverage because we truly believe that every hotel should be exciting and shouldn't be boring people with soulless restaurants, bars, and lounges. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Excellent. And Michael Tips.
It's going to be hard for me to beat the English charm. Oh, man. I am the CEO and founder of a company called Maverick Theory with the cool brand behind my head here. And we consult and advise all over the country and somewhat globally. So we're doing really cool stuff with design as well, which is pretty unique for consulting firms. And these guys are all part of our great company. So it's pretty awesome to be on the same call with them.
Yeah. And Maverick Theory actually landed the opportunity to help select and screen speakers for the Bar and Restaurant Expo. You want to talk a little bit about that really quick before we jump into?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. It's actually been a really cool experience for us. I've been a member of the Bar and Restaurant Expo board for Nightclub and Bar, the formerly Nightclub and Bar, for many years, and I've been speaking at the show for over a decade. And we were able to form a great strategic partnership where they came in and said, hey, we want you to use your expertise and your connections with hospitality and food and beverage to really, it's not just qualify speakers, but to make sure that they're great in front of an audience and they're a great fit for the attendee. And that's really cool that they're doing that. A lot of trade shows have never done that by bringing in a third party like that. We've learned so much, and now we actually have a much deeper appreciation for the trade shows themselves, which we never did before. We were always very easy to critique how trade shows run until you start having to go through their processes with them, like most businesses. So it's been really, really cool. We've met some amazing people, and there's a lot of great people in the country trying to do a lot of cool stuff. And it's also been fun to let people know like what really matters for the attendees. I mean, they're flying in from all over the world. So if you're going to get up there and say you know a lot about hospitality, you got to represent, So it's been great. But yeah, so it's been awesome this year. March in Vegas should be pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So I'm gonna stay with you, Michael, as we start this. So my newsletter, I talked about a few things. I talked about why should we go to these conferences and conventions, and then we'll talk more later on about the rest of the newsletter, but it talked about how do you prepare, what do you do after, and all of that. So can you kind of talk about why you not only go to these events, but you will get a booth and you're on the board of one, and what do you see as the major benefits for going to conferences like Bar and Restaurant?
What a loaded question, Monty. Well, I think I'm going to be somewhat biased because I think that Bar and Restaurant Expo is top two or like tied for first place for the best, restaurant shows in the country. And I think our world is the Wild West. Our world meaning hospitality, right? There's no set way to do anything. So it's not the same as, say, going to a trade show for tech or architecture or legal, where there's baseline things that rules that can't be bent. In our world, they're all bendable. And anybody who says they know what they're doing is correct because they learned a certain way. Whether it's effective in a different format or medium, no one really knows. So I think that a trade show is so valuable in this because you need to not only see what's working for people, but you need to see how it's working for them in their market and in the way that they do it, right? And then figure out what you can get from that to apply to your own process. And I think it's good to meet people on every level meaning level of experience. So for something like this, it's also really unique to get a bunch of bar owners, restaurant owners, and hotel owners who normally consider other people competition, when in fact that's not really how the business works. So it's really cool to get them all in the same room, and they start realizing they have a lot of commonalities, and then you can just learn a shit ton from it.
Yeah,
that is my official way of saying you should go. But
yeah, we have a very gray. You called it the wild wild west, but certainly we have kind of a gray. There's no black and white in what we do, and there's no one answer fits all situations, which is why consulting and coaching is so important. And it's a great way for people to get together and not only have some peer-to-peer opportunity, but also to be able to learn from speakers. And you're going to be speaking on Startup Essential Workshop with Maverick Theory. Do you want to briefly describe what that is going to entail, and then what day you're speaking?
Yeah, so this is actually a really cool thing we're excited about. I mean, really, not to shoot myself in the foot here, but it's actually not really me getting up and speaking. I'm leading a workshop, and it was really, really important for us to change the way workshops are perceived in trade shows. So for us, what we did was we even changed the layout, right? We have kind of a cool layout we did with tables and chairs and how we do it, where we're actually going to workshop everybody's ideas. So people that want to be in the business or are just about to sign a lease or mid-construction or they just opened are coming in, and we're going to cover everything from lease negotiation to how to price your cocktails, how to create a concept, everything there in between, over 6 hours and 2 days on Tuesday and Wednesday in San Antonio. But the coolest thing about it for us is we don't know if anything like this has ever been done before outside of a beginner workshop where you have multiple people get up and speak about fundamentals, versus we're actually going to workshop your concept. We're actually going to workshop your beverage menu. We're going to workshop your P&Ls in front of everybody and break it down and make it a group exercise so everybody gains from it. And I'm going to be joined by other members of the team, chefs, construction experts, even down to lawyers. So we can answer people's questions in real time, and they can check and see if we know what the hell we're talking about. It'd be great.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Scott, you are speaking as well. You've got 2 sessions you're doing. One is changing mindset, how high-performing teams think differently, on Tuesday, the 29th. And then you're also speaking on Wednesday, the 30th, why you should know your guests better than ever before. So do you want to kind of start off with why you think people should go to, who should go to these conferences, why they should go, and then a little detail on what you're going to be speaking about?
For sure. I was at a panel event the other week, actually, and someone was talking to me about how do you train your teams of what great looks like in hotel food and beverage, and I said to them, the best place you can do, or the best thing you can do, is you send them to the great places that serve food and beverage. You let them experience it. I think that's what you need to do with your people when it comes to trade shows, right? How do they know the best vendors out there? How do they know the best speakers or the best topics out there to handle them if they don't go and experience it? So I think everyone should go to a trade show, and it doesn't matter where you are in your career. I think you should go there and you should try and meet people. You should try and go and see those people who are ahead of you on the journey, learn from them, try and speak to them, and engage yourself in the whole thing. So I think it's something for everyone. It's funny, I was at one yesterday. I was speaking on a panel at the Independent Hotel Show in London, and I saw a couple of people who I haven't seen probably for about 12 years, something like that. We opened a hotel together. She was one of the housekeeping managers were in a 5-star hotel that I opened. So it's just an amazing opportunity to reconnect and connect with new people as well. So that's why people should go to them. The 2 topics, let's go on the one on Wednesday first, why you should know your guests better than ever before. There's just produced an F&B report. We've used data from HotStats to get 2,000 hotels results for first for 2024 in the UK and the US. We've put it into a report. We've showed you the findings, and we've given you some solutions to come out of it. One of the things that came out of that report is that the new modern traveler is valuing personalized experience more than ever before. So now hotels, restaurants, bars, anyone out there who has an F&B business, a restaurant business, needs to start profiling guests and need to start being able to personalize experience. So the talk on Wednesday is really going into one, why should we profile guests? What does it mean by profiling guests? And then what are some of the great ways to do it? And then more importantly, how you use that data when you've got it, try and get those people back again and again. So it's going to be really interactive, cool session, that one. The one Tuesday, change mindset, how high-performing teams think differently. That's really focused on hotel and hotel F&B. Mike Grove from Hotstats is the CEO. He's going to go on just before. He's going to present a lot of the data that's in the F&B report. And then I'm going to go on afterwards, slightly more hair than him. So I think we're kind of going to build it up to Matt with a full head of hair. But I'm going to go after some findings that are in there about using that data, how to look at F&B differently, how to change your mindset about what F&B is nowadays, make it more not functional. It shouldn't be an amenity. Let's focus on in local community. We're going to touch on all of that. We'll present some of the data as well that Mike hasn't gone into and give them solutions to try and get these hoteliers to just start thinking a little bit differently about F&B and start seeing some different results, because if download the report, it's on our website, hospitality.com, just to do a little plug. But when you go in there, things are okay. We're at risk of kind of going back a little bit further. So it's a huge opportunity in 2025 to do things a different way.
Good. I wanted to give a quick shout out. Kenneth, our buddy Kenny Charlotte is on here.
What's up, Ken?
You're giving us a plug. He'll be there as well. He actually is a task force guy in the hotel space. I know, Scott, I know you know him. So, hey, Kenny, thanks for jumping in and listening. All right, Matt, we got you now. You're bringing it. You're speaking twice as well. Before we talk about that, if you would want to just talk about why you think, because you and Scott are making trips from outside the U.S. to come to this event. So obviously you guys see the value of that. For you, Matt, what's the value for you to come? And then also, why should restaurant owners, restaurateurs, restaurant coaches, tech companies, why should they be coming to Bar and Restaurant Expo in San Antonio, or just conferences in general?
Yeah, I think first is hearing everybody share up front. What I think about is the audience. So who's sitting in the seat? And I believe that success leaves clues. And if you look at leadership in our industry, when they're in senior leadership or for larger brands, they're going consistently to behind the curtain conferences that cost thousands or tens of thousands of dollars and getting continuous development and growth for themselves and their brands. What I think that BRE and the Hospitality Show create is the opportunity for any leader, current leader or future leader, to invest in themselves. At a low cost, it's an investment of time. But if top performing leaders are continuously investing in themselves, success leaves clues. So we have that opportunity. And looking at the speaker lineups for both shows, they're remarkable. But I encourage everybody, whether it's a supplier in a booth or somebody attending, how do you show up with intention? What do you want to take away from the show? The more selfish you are, rather than just being active on the floor, don't mistake activity for achievement. Go with intention. Find your tech supplier, find your food supplier, attend your session with intention so you can go back and do something for you. So I think it's really I think all shows, as Michael said, start with design properly, start with the audience inside, not the trade show. The audience in mind, not just the trade show in the booth. So I think if we start, how do we deliver value to that person showing up, that future leader, the person who's overwhelmed over capacity, and give them a little bit to support themselves inside their role and hopefully outside of work as well. And that'll lead into the talks. If you don't mind, Monte, I'll jump right into the two talks. I've got one on Monday at 1:00, and we're going to talk about the experience economy. So how do we create a competitive advantage through customer and employee experiences? What I feel like, I am shocked. And I was just in Texas at the LEAD event 2 weeks ago. I was really impressed with the service there, but I would say, I don't know if everybody agrees before I go on, I would say service is average at best. As well, to match that, the employee experience is average at best. So I don't know if anybody agrees. We could bitch about what's happening, or we could look at it for anybody who chooses to attack their guest experience, their employee experience, to create a point of difference for themselves, for their culture, for their guests, and ultimately, as a result, for their business. So we're going to go into concepts that I've worked on for over a decade. We're going to break them down, just like Michael and Scott. It's going to be a workshop format. I have no interest in coming to Texas to speak at an audience for 45 or 60 minutes. I want to talk with an audience, worksheets, assets, absorption exercises to go do different. And then I'm really excited to talk at the hospitality show. Like, look at some of the keynotes on there, right? So I got to say that I'm speaking on a stage with Chef Jose Andres, which I'm not, but he is there earlier in the week as the kickoff keynote. I think pretty darn cool to see him speak at the NRA show. But we're going to talk about leading the future. So 5 proven strategies to drive engagement, to take care of yourself, and to avoid burnout. And I want to put the leader first. So how does a leader take care of themselves so they can support their people? But how do we really start to see each other, human to human connection, create true engagement so we can go to work? I think too much we're looking at process and ops and see each other as the people that we are, the humans we are, make our people feel seen, valued, and heard so we can create momentum to get what we want. I will probably speak at that pace during my talks, not my normal talking speed, but try to get that as Tip knows. I'm excited, Monte. Yeah, I'm making a trip from Toronto, Canada, down to San Antonio, second time in Texas in a month. I love my Tips is going to Dallas. Texas, one of the fast. They have more restaurants, 65,000 restaurants in Texas. Emily and I shared that the other day. There's more restaurants in Texas than there are in Canada. It's a good space to be.
Wow, that's awesome.
Good stat. Wow.
Just a quick slight correction on yours. You're not speaking at 1:00 on Monday. You're speaking at 2:15.
I was just making sure, just checking if everybody else was looking at
Yeah, I wanted to real quickly, Monte, just wanted to add something that Matt said that it's really important to tell attendees for them to get something out of it, right? Like this is probably I was thinking about Matt talking about the curation of the audience. I think one of the things is when you put yourself in the position of an audience member, going to these shows is also very intimidating. Because a lot of the people that go to these shows, I would say 75% of them, based on the data that I know from the different shows, are either like first unit one unit operators, or they want to be in the business. And then you got about 20 to 30% that come in that have multi-unit and are very experienced. It's a lot. It's just as nerve-wracking as walking into a crowded bar and not being in that business and feeling like you're going to get neglected at the bar, right? It's like a social anxiety test for people. So my point of bringing this up is you're about to either invest or you're currently invested at anywhere between $300,000 and $10 million, depending on your market and what you're doing. You really got to approach each vendor with real questions. So when Matt's talking about having intention, that also means that you might have to shake the nice guy routine as well. Because like as an example, when you're going up and dealing with POS companies, every one of them want to sign you up right there. That's why they're there, to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. However, you also have to be able to ask them real hard questions that practical owners need to know for their venue and their market. And sometimes people aren't willing to answer this, or they haven't prepared enough, but they're willing to sell you the service, right? So that you really have to have your buyer beware and your seller beware at the same time, and also be open-minded to learn. But that's the part about it. At the end of the day, let's be real. A trade show on a business level, in many ways, is like a traveling carnival too. In regards to this model. So I'm just saying, to really get the most out of it, you really do have to walk in there knowing that you might have to buy a car that day, but you want to do your research. And you really want to be focused and to get something out of each vendor to learn. You really have to do your homework, and you have to not worry about offending them by asking them hard questions. Like, does your POS do X? You know what I mean? And they're like, well, it kind of is. No, does it or does it not? Because there's a lot of that there. So for it to be really, really invaluable, they're going to do some research, but also don't be afraid of asking the tough questions.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I like about Bar Restaurant Expo in the past in Vegas, and I'm sure Texas is going to be the same way, is that there's no infomercials on stage. So if you're listening to in a session, you're not going to get sold, on a service or product. It's an opportunity to grow and learn. And I'm excited to sit in on all of yours because they're going to be more workshop driven. Mine's going to be less of me talking than I've done in some of the past things, but and a little more interactive with the audience, but it won't be a true workshop scenario. But I'm definitely going to be way more engaged with the audience than I have been in the past, which I'm excited about. Arno Stemmer sent in a message. Matt, he says you're better than Jose. So
I don't know what Jose is referring to, but
there's a greater sign there.
Forever.
So thanks for sharing that, Arno.
I said Arno the ludicrous track this morning. Said, "Welcome to Atlanta, Arno."
So for me, being a restaurant coach, because I'll be honest, until I started coaching, I had never gone to a conference as a restaurant operator. When I started going, I was a restaurant operator and a coach, but I never went purely as an operator. And I wish that I had, because the information that's given out is so helpful for restaurant owners and operators and managers that, I wish that I had taken advantage of that. But I was actually my very first time at Bar Restaurant Expo, I was fortunate enough to get on the stage and was on a panel. And I've been able to speak 3 years in a row now, which is really cool. And actually, I met Michael 3 years ago there, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I love is, Scott and I will be meeting in person for the very first time.
Me too. I get to meet Scott in person too.
Yeah. Me too. But we've been on calls. We've been on each other's podcasts. We've been on a number of things together. And so we've become friends through that process, but nothing's better than in person. So that's another reason to be able to, anyone you connect with through social media and the virtual world, you have the opportunity to meet these people. And it's really, really kind of cool. Kind of a humbling thing for me is a lot of times when we put this information out virtually to the world on social media, we don't always know what kind of an impact it's making. And one of the things that I really enjoyed is meeting people that have followed me for a while, meeting them in person and hearing from them how I've impacted, their business just by the stuff that I've posted. So that's always super rewarding for me and a little bit humbling when someone comes up and it's like, "Oh, you're Monte Silva." It's like, yeah, you don't really know what to say. But I think that for me now as a coach, my strategy for sharing content and growing my business is creating content, whether it's a post, a video, a blog, a book, an ebook, a workbook, and then creating and then connecting. And I do that through social media as well as these conferences, and then collaboration. And so I just wrote something on collaboration recently, and I was on Evocalize's podcast and talked about how, I've got collabs going on with all three of you, with Christian Fisher through his publishing company. They published my book. Robert Irvine, I've become friends, and I'm helping promote his charity for the military. And so being able to go create, connect, collaborate, I wouldn't be collaborating if I hadn't connected with people. And so for me, that's my favorite part, is just, I always make a point that, if Tips is at a show, that I hang out with him. In fact, I just posted a cool picture of us after our conference we were at in Cincinnati. But yeah, so I think that for me, it's more about going deeper on some relationships, developing some new relationships, and just finding out what's going on and what's troubling our industry, so that I can go back and create content and share it that's going to be helpful to what we do. So for me, I mentioned I'm speaking Monday just before Matt. So I am going on the same time as as Jason E. Brooks, which is unfortunate because I love listening to him. But I'm going at 1:00 on the first session on the first day. Great. And then right after me is Matt. So that's going to be a fun afternoon. And my session is on maximizing profit, how to ensure your bottom line crushes the industry standard. And it's going to be a little bit different. I think a lot of people talk about P&Ls and margin costs and, food costs, labor, liquor cost, controllables, all of those things. And I take a different approach that I think is healthier and more sustainable in the market. So I'll be talking about.
Monty, I want to add to something you're saying, because I think it's interesting. Like, when you're diving into some of those subjects, it reminds me that I think sometimes on these trade shows, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I hear, obviously we'll all dive into a lot of those details with our clients, potential clients, attendees. I recently, I don't know how you guys have been with this in your sessions or your workshops, but I've really, really enjoyed asking them point blank questions. Just like, why are you doing this? It seems to be the most effective question versus like a lot of the more technically savvy ones. For me, because it just stops the whole conversation. And I'm saying, you realize you're buying an old station wagon, you think it's a Ferrari. That's what's happening with hospitality, because it's a very sexy business. And they don't realize that under the hood, it's actually an old Volkswagen. It's the family truckster, right? So and then they start laughing and we start connecting. And then it's more about, like you said, more about the deeper, how do you get to the deeper dive? And you almost have to make it about, like what Matt says, about intention, right? Like, even the word intention goes over some people's heads. So you have to be able to say, like, what is your reasoning? What is your inspiration for doing this? And you have to love it and be obsessed with it for it to work. Yeah. You have to be obsessed with it, because it's going to overtake your life for a while. If anyone tells you, oh no, it's about, working smart, not hard, and you work 9 hours a week, I'm like, that's a lie. And you can do that. Absolutely. When you've been doing it for a long time, you know how to compartmentalize, and you know how to delegate, and you know how to like strategize, all that stuff. But it's interesting to find that base reason, because then you can get to the deeper stuff and what their own metrics of success are. Because I think a lot of it for us is always that business model of, oh, they make a lot of money, they hit their margins. Well, margins don't pay bills necessarily. So, it's like trying to figure out what their idea of success really looks like. Because some people, it's not the place being financially successful. It's having a place to hang out, so, which can screw up your management, can screw up your partners. Like, there's a lot of things there to consider. So I tend to find at the trade shows, if for myself, when I'm really able to connect with some awesome attendees, it's how honest can we get in a short amount of time? And that's how we're going to get something out of it. Matt talked a lot about that in Cincinnati. When he got up and I got to hear him speak just about approaching things authentically and really understanding that, like, sometimes formality slows things down a lot.
Yeah.
Like, there's some brilliance in what you're sharing there, right? So what we're asking permission to do is, in my belief, people either move away from pain or they move towards pleasure. So what Michael's just done for me is he's making, because I can't create an opportunity for you, but he's going to find, why are you doing this? When you ask that question, it actually shortened my breath. Like, I started to go back and say, well, why am I doing this? But it put me on the spot to think. And the key thing as coaches is we want to create a space for people to act. And sometimes we need to put you in a position. 80% of people move away from fear, 20% move towards pleasure. Sometimes we have to find the motivation. What's the risk if you don't act? What's the risk if you don't get your legal, if you don't get your construction, if you don't get your list right, if you F up your cocktail list out of the gate because it looks cool online but doesn't execute in your concept? What's that going to cost the business? And we don't take margins to the bank, right? We have to build profitability as a result of consistent human behavior. What's the behavior that produces the result that you want from your time? And that's what I appreciate about seeing the three of you speak. The tips which you shared there is putting people on the spot with permission to act for them. But we have to find that motivation, because my thing is stop consuming and start executing.
Yeah.
Don't go and sit in 8 sessions. Even if you say,
I agree with that, Mark.
Yeah, tips.
I think you're right. And I think, yes. And I'm sure you have this all the time with your clients, but I always get those famous words, what if it goes wrong? And response to these people is always, what if it goes right? You've got to decide, do you want to be the guy who thinks about if it's going to go wrong, or the guy who thinks about if it's going to go right? Because that's two very different mindsets. The one on this side, and I'm doing it like that for a reason, is the play it safe, and they get safe, right? And the guys on the other side do want to look at what if it goes. They're willing to take risks. They're willing to be bold. They're willing to kind of go one step further, and they just see much bigger results, and they get one and the vision at the end of it. But those little words, what if it goes wrong? I hear it a lot. And it's an interesting way to get back to people because it usually stumps them. Very similar to your question. I remember you asking me that question when we first met as well. So it's brought back memories for that. But yeah, what if it goes wrong? What if it goes right?
I think the mindset is important, and so one of the questions, the first question I'm going to ask in my session is who here is an owner, who here is in operations as operational leadership, and then the next question is going to be, if you are an owner, are you so focused on percentages more so than any other aspect of the business? And if you're an operator or leader, are you sick of hearing about percentages? And I'm going to get some people that are excited, right? Operators may be excited that, hey, yeah, if someone's finally saying, yeah, can we we're talking about percentages on every freaking meeting. And some of the owners might be a little, testy, and it's gonna challenge them because that's their mindset, right? They're thinking about that. And when you're focused on percentages, you're thinking, well, what, bad things, right? You're thinking about costs. When you're thinking about dollars, you're thinking about good things. You're thinking about sales and everything else. So I think that being able to ask those hard questions, as you said, Michael, is going to be super important to get people thinking, because for 50 years, well, in my case, for 25 years, I've had this shit beat out of me about percentages, right? And you got to hit this for your prime cost, and you got to hit this for your controllables. And those things actually shrink the pie, because what you're doing is you're cutting what makes the money. You're cutting your labor, you're cutting, whether it's a salesperson or your production line, you're actually shrinking your business. And I think that our model has been so broken for 50 years that that's a big reason why 80% of restaurants still fail.
Well, what's interesting is that one of the things I love asking my clients, and there's people I work with and other businesses as well, is how much money do you want to make? That'll inform every decision you make, especially if you're dealing with things like square footage, because your venue's going to have its limitations. And that's the first thing you should be looking at. Is you live in a physical world. You're not building tech where you can expand it in a digital world. So regardless of how experienced or even how successful you are, you really got to be able to break down that's why there's a thing called occupancy, right? And table turns. So let's figure out what that is. And then let's build the business around your strengths, and then build a model around what you're able to execute versus the model that you're supposed to follow that you read about in the book from 1978.
Yeah.
Right. So there's always that. Then that's the best thing about it. Then you find out what the percentages serve you or not. That it'll inform a lot of your decisions on whether you want to be fast casual, or you want to sit down, or you want to be, a lounge that has a certain kind of music and be open till midnight. How much money do you want to make? And how do you want to make it? So, I know plenty of clients who are like, I'm only netting 10%. And well, everyone says you should be netting 15 to 18. Whatever. So, well, yeah, but I got tons of money in my account. Then you're winning. You're winning. I know plenty of people who are netting 21% and are broke. So,
yeah.
For a true net, and what they're having to reinvest, or what they're having to, it's just like everything's got a caveat. So that's why, even with us, we don't ever talk about revenue. Obviously, we have to deal with revenue. It's a real thing. But that's like dealing with the tide. But what I can do is I can control how many buckets of water I put in something. I can control my guest. So I find on the trade show, a lot of it has to do with getting practical with people and applying what might be their strengths. If they're a retired firefighter or a tech guy and they're in the business, or they're somebody from the hotel world who wants to open their own restaurant, as an example, right? Just trying to figure out what is their strengths. And that's the coolest thing about trade shows, is you get to learn a lot about people and their backgrounds and how you can apply. I think as a coach / consultant / instructor / Jedi Knight, whatever you want to call us, I think that what makes us unique, and I would speak for you guys as well, is the ability to, there's a saying that I love, that expertise gives us the ability to bend what others deem as the truth, right? So to be able to get other people and their core strengths and apply that to our business is a unique skill set. And I think you guys are all able to do that really well. I don't think you're able to really come in contact with that unless you do meet people at a trade show. It doesn't happen through emails or online.
Yeah, for sure.
So come to the
Matt,
Bar Restaurant Expo, the greatest show on earth.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get to why that particular one, because I agree with what you said about it certainly being one of the top shows.
Yes.
Matt, so we've talked a lot in person and through phone calls and Zoom calls, along with Scott, about how do we prepare for a conference like Bar and Restaurant Expo Texas. You want to kind of talk about where's your headspace as you're going into San Antonio in about 10 days, as far as how do you prepare to get the most out of these conferences?
Yeah, so I think it's clear on the results and flexible on the approach, if that makes sense. So I know the outcome that I want is genuine connections. If I take time away from my kids, I got an 8-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. If I leave them, some of you have heard this, my goal is to help people. So I want to make, and the only way I can do that is if I make a genuine connection that is usually sparked on a stage or sparked with another coach, speaker, leader, supplier through a deeper conversation. So I want to start conversations, but create depth. If I can do that with one person, that's my key. But why I'm doing this, I really did spend a lot of time thinking about the audience. You know, Monte, I'm going to watch your talk. Your talk's going to influence my talk. The talks I sit through Scott's on Tuesday is going to influence my talk on Wednesday, because the more reps I get, the better I understand the community and the audience. And I think probably myself and Michael are the same. If we ever did 5 presentations in a row, the 5 are going to be slightly different based on moving to the gravity in the room, moving to the interest in the room. So my side is just being, you know, sometimes I get imposter syndrome. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. I've got 15 years of doing this stuff, and my intention is to go down there and help somebody. I tuck that away, and I'm going to stay in my lane. What Michael just shared on, like that, simply, I just wrote down to rewatch the 1 minute that Tips just shared there, 1 minute and about 90 seconds.
That's flattering. Thanks, man.
The clarity of what you shared, well, you do this all for me all the time. The clarity of what you shared on turns and just the perspective there, it's like, that's it. Like in a live environment, that 90 seconds bent my belief system on how I see physical space versus digital space. I just had an aha moment on thank you to Monte on this call. My side, those experiences there, like that's what I'm looking for. How do I prepare? Drinking milk and go to the gym, Monte.
Well, you know what's fun? I gotta say this because I don't think most people have the balls to do this, and you do this a lot on social media, Matt. So I always appreciate it. What the imposter syndrome thing? I don't want to let that go, because I feel like that's a big thing that people have. They talk about it over at every coffee shop in the world. They're talking about AI and fucking imposter syndrome. It's a real thing, and it's like, here's what's interesting. I think imposter syndrome, everybody has it in moments. So it's not like, obviously it's not something that sticks on you. It's not a shadow, but I think everybody, as a human being, wonders, hey, am I qualified to be here no matter what? I think that comes from the idea of being a perfectionist, right? Like the reality is, if you're supposed to know everything and be perfect at it, then therefore if somebody exposes that you're not perfect at it, you're a fake. What I find in common is what, like, speaking of the great Arno Stemmer, we talked about this, is I'm at a point in my life, I'm just going to be honest with you guys, and for the people, you know, we're going to listen to this later or now, is that you're trying to work at the highest level you can, and you're trying to not be driven by people's praise and validation, and also not be off-put by their criticism. I'm at a point when I look at my work and anything I'm doing, and I try to approach it as a scientist. The actual experiments might fail. They're going to. The odds are they're going to. That's got nothing to do with what I'm trying to accomplish. So when Elon Musk crashes 10 rockets and then this 11th one takes off, it's like, dude, I knew I was going to crash fucking rockets. It's the same thing in our world. So I think when you get up there, I like getting up and saying, hey, if Steve Jobs could get up and talk about all the things he did that didn't fucking work, then who am I? So I always combat any level of imposter syndrome for myself, because I'm human, I get it too, is when I'm like, oh, that's what the idea that I have to know everything and be perfect. So I'm going to give you my best attempt at you be able to cut corners in the things that I've done that haven't worked and I've learned from, so it can save you a year of your life. And then on top of it, the things that I have done that have worked and why they work, outside of the fact that I like them because they're mine, right? So I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that stops a lot of people from taking any risks. And it takes a lot of balls to get up and talk to people and give them your perspective and the things that you haven't done well on, that you've been able to autocorrect. So kudos for even saying that.
and I just hopefully hear Scott's opinion, but one person that's been an incredible mentor and inspiration to me is watching Scott take things head on in the last 18 months since we met each other. I meet a lot of people, and I think the way that Scott has taken things on with his passion, with just your relentless work, how many hours you put in, but head down, like I can make an impact in this niche, in my space, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring a team, and I'm going to build partnerships. And I mean that, brother. Like, I've learned from you and watched, hey, you've got your niche and you're charging hard and moving forward. And that's inspired me to be. And the one thing that gets rid of my imposter syndrome, stay out of effing lanes that aren't mine. Don't try to be an expert at a space that I'm not. And in my immaturity in my younger age. And before I turn it over to Scott, your comment on AI. Here's my takeaway from the NRA show. Day 2, I started to ask people if they've seen the AI water. It's at booth 3306. People say, oh shit, I haven't seen the AI water. We should go check it out. There's no AI water. It was a joke. But people are looking at AI and technology to that degree to try to help their business. We're a people-focused business. Let's invest in our people and as tips in our physical space. So thanks for the inspiration, Scott. There's no AI water, but
I thought Scott was going to cut me off and go, well, actually, I don't agree with tips because I don't ever get imposter syndrome because I actually do know everything. So, I don't know what you guys are talking about, you fucking silly bastard Americans.
Listen, I'm just coming with my British accent, hoping it's going to get me through all the fuck ups that happened during the talk. So it's fine, and if not, I can just blame it on being British. Right? So it's cool. It's our jet lag, the king, prime minister, all the rest. We can blame it on all of that. It's fine. It's fine. But I agree. I think no. I mean, listen, it takes some balls, doesn't it, to get up, as you say? And I think it's one thing I've learned over the years is if you make yourself uncomfortable, you're never going to move forwards. And I'm coming over there to primarily to meet you guys, spend time with you guys, and hang out, and not have to bring the wife with me because it's a work trip. So it's a lot better to party with you guys without us. So that's probably the main reason I'm coming. But I want to also just see if you guys over there want some Brit to come and help with some hotel F&B. That's the thing. I want to dip my toes in the other side of the pond, see if you're up for it, see if you want to hear this accent a bit more, and share a bit of value that's coming out from what we've been doing over here in the UK and Europe, because I've seen the data of the hotels in the US, as I say, there's not that much difference between the UK and the US from a data perspective. And when I speak to people, Mike, we've had these conversations before. The similarities are really key. So I want to see if we can come over and do it. When I set up Auden, I always wanted to be bigger than just the UK, and this is a really interesting time for me. So I guess over to your question, Monty, about how I'm preparing this. Where I'm working with the speaking coach who I work with to really see how I need to adapt for the US market versus the UK. So if we go on the UK and start like giving it large and getting people up and cheering and all the rest of it, they'll think we've gone fucking crazy. So it's going to be a different audience completely to what I'm used to talking to. So we're doing a lot of work on that. I'm British. I'm a bit more sarcastic. I've got to work on that bit as well for when I come over. So it's very different. So yeah, I've got a little bit of. I'm going to be uncomfortable going into that first one. So if anyone's watching this, I'm just asking for some support, just a little bit, just to help me along, to get me going, because the first one's the most important.
Yeah, that's all tactics in there, folks. Like, this is my first time doing the talk. Like, hey, support me from the seats.
I've never done it to the US, right? It's
God, I bet you're a great poker player.
Yeah.
Michael.
So where was I on that? Yeah, we'll have fun. But listen, I think, do you know what? It's really interesting because QuestX, I was at a QuestX event in Manchester a couple of weeks ago, and they've got their app where you can go in there and you can see who's attending. You can try and reach out to them and arrange some meetups. That worked incredibly well for me when I was in Manchester. It was 2 days. I came away with like 3 or 4 different leads, 2 of them like really big hotel development projects as well. So I've been trying to hit up some people who I want to have a chat with, want to have a coffee with on the app. And looking at which conversations, back to what you were saying, Matt, which conversations you can have, which people you can go and just have a general coffee with. This isn't a business development trip. This is just about meeting people and starting conversations and trying to see whether there's opportunity, I guess. So it's yeah, that app's a great tool.
You know, the thing is, Scott, though, I do want to, we'll have to bring up the great debate about coffee and tea with you British people.
Yes.
And I want to do that thing where people are like, oh, yeah, you know, I met Scott Turner, great guy. And I'm like, yeah, guy, kind of receding hairline, accent. And they're going to go, yeah. I go, good looking, smart. And they're going to go, yeah. I'm going to go, did you have coffee with him? And they go, yeah. I go, did you have coffee or tea? So, I had coffee. Why? I'm like, you know, he's British. He could have been very insulted by the coffee. And then they're going to be like, oh, my God. Well, if he likes you, he would have picked tea. If he didn't like you, he probably had coffee with you. So,
I think they'd be insulted by the tea after, the Boston Tea Party, but that's another story. Michael,
I like the fact that we both have receding hairlines. It's good.
Yeah. Michael, how do you what are you thinking as you prepare for? I know that it's a little different for you because you're also on the board, but how do you prepare for events like this?
Well, I'm going to give you the answer I wanted to do was a joke, so I don't want to ruin it. But I definitely was like, I'm running 10 miles a day, I'm 1,000 sit-ups. I wanted to do that one, but in all honesty, it's actually pretty, for lack of a better word, extemporaneous for me. The presentations that I make, I try to make very visual and try to create an experience for the audience that doesn't feel like a typical PowerPoint, so I can keep them engaged, and that tends to take me a long time. I wish I could rush through it or use like a template, but I can't. It's always location specific. And I do a lot of the creative work in my company in regards to concepts and architecture and design. So when I do it, I try to really focus on creating interactive points with the audience, but then also really focus on the presentation. And sometimes they take me 20 or 30 hours, just to really nail them down and refine them to make sure they're impactful and they get people's attention. Because I definitely don't take for granted the opportunity to speak and have people's attention in their lives for 1 hour. So it might be the only Michael Tips experience they ever have. So it's very important for me to make sure that they remember something positive, or at least something engaging, interesting, or otherwise makes their thought provoking out of it, whether they like me or not. Right. So I tend to put a lot of time into the prep, but I do enjoy, even though it's torturous time wise.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of touch on the imposter syndrome thing because, moving from an operator into coaching, that was a new uncomfortable thing for me, trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to offer? Who is in need of that? How do I tell them? How do I find them and then tell them what I can do to help them? So that was a difficult thing for me. And then the next thing was, as I started writing blogs, I never considered myself a writer. So I always felt like kind of the imposter writing. I'm not the best punctuator or anything like that. And then that slowly moved into a book, which I never in my wildest dreams would have ever thought I'd be an author. And then speaking, getting on stage, I feel like, I joke all the time about having a face for radio, but just being able to deliver, I have ADD and I could go off on 55 different directions if I'm not dialed in. And so just really learning how to communicate well on stage, is taking me a lot of time. This podcast, I never thought I'd be a podcaster. So really I feel that imposter syndrome throughout pretty much everything I do right now. So I definitely understand what you're saying there. I have tried to be authentic and talk about, things I did wrong. Not just what the industry did wrong, but things that I did wrong. Because I used to just run through people because I was task focused, not people focused. And so I think that being genuine and real has helped me kind of work through some of that imposter syndrome and people can relate to that. So that's that. As far as preparing, besides preparing for whatever session I'm doing, I really just try to reach out to as many people through LinkedIn and other sites that I know and say, hey, are you going? And then I try to specifically set aside time to meet and be with those people. We did that in Cincinnati. Matt and I did that at NRA. The four of us, as well as Arno and Dave and Brian and other people, are going to do that. Jason Brooks, other people are going to do that. Kenneth Charlotte on this trip. But it's really, for me, about, can I deepen a relationship? And Michael and I have done that over the last 3 years, to where now he's probably tired of me calling him. But we had this thing where we slowly built this relationship over time. And so my preparation is, who's going and how can I connect with you? So
I think I'll just close out on that. Just for me, wraps up what everybody's just shared for blinks of imposter syndrome or feelings that we have. The thing that shifted me about a handful of years ago, Simon Sinek put out a video, and when he was at a cab in New York City going to his first big talk, and he said to himself, you better be ready because you asked for this. You asked for the opportunity to speak on stages. You asked to share your experience. You asked to influence. This is Simon Sinek, right? He's not new in his career, but this is like he's going to speak to 10,000 people, probably a six-figure check, all this stuff. And he said he got stuck in himself in the cab. And often in a day when I get a big opportunity, it's just, hey, you better be ready. You asked for this. This is what all the late nights, all the 30 hours doing a visual, and Michael's presentations are like, again, I could vividly remember the slides from Cincinnati. They're brilliant. But just that prep, right? That's why we're putting in the reps right now. We're not doing this to go hawk something from a stage. We're doing this to shift people. And that's what I feel about the four of us on this call.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. This is great.
Follow up. So after the event, what can you recommend? And I'll open it up to whoever wants to share. We have about 5 minutes left. What do you do after to try to capitalize on, who you met? And when I say capitalize, I don't mean create capital from it. I mean, how do you, deepen or strengthen that connection you made?
You mean, can I ask you a question, a clarifying question? You mean like from our point of view to a potential like client attendee, or what's best for the attendee?
If whether you're a restaurant operator or owner that has made some connection or has learned some things, or you're a coach or a consultant, and you've made some connections with people, what do you guys do when you get back? It's easy for us to like, okay, the conference is done, out of sight, out of mind. But if you wait until the next year and try to reconnect those people, you're missing the opportunity to deepen and grow things. Whether it's a financial opportunity or just, I'm a firm believer that God sets my appointments and puts people in my path, and so I try to maximize that, knowing that I don't meet people by happenstance. So for me, it's about following up and seeing how I can continue to serve them, ongoing.
Do you want me? I'll say a couple of things because it's quite fresh off. I was at a trade show yesterday here in the UK, but I think first of all, I'm going to try and get as much content as I can to share with others when I leave the conference. I'm going to get the mics on when we're doing the talk, so we can try and get our own podcast and try and get some content with you guys and stuff like that. Because I think, for all those people who don't get there, it shouldn't be the reason why you don't hear some of the value that can be on offer. So I think that's the first one for me, is how do you share once you've gone. I think the other thing then for me is, first thing I did this morning, first email I sent was to say thank you to the guy who did the panel yesterday that I sat on when I was on the panel. Because it's just important, right? People have put their faith in you. People have asked you to be there and given you trust and confidence that you can go and do a good job. And it's just, I don't know, call it the Britishness in me, but there's something just needs a thank you, right? I think there's that. And then genuinely, if you go and have conversations with vendors and you engage with people and you let them scan your badge and you let them think that you've had a good conversation, do them the courtesy of reply. So I've had 3 emails today from people who scanned my thing of uniform suppliers and a few different things that we keep on projects. I replied back to each of them today, and some of them are good for now. Some of them need to be saved in the archives folder for later. each one knows where they stand, because I think for me, there's nothing worse than being ghosted by a potential lead, a potential client. Like, it's just fucking rude. So, just have the courtesy. If you're going to have conversations with people, just tell them where you stand, right? Don't leave a girl hanging. Just say it how it is. So I think that's the one for me is that. But try and consume as much content. Try and take it away. Be courteous and do as much as you can afterwards to make sure that you take the learnings.
That's good.
No, yeah, like, I mean, obviously I'm going to tell, because, like, I 100% agree that you got to follow up on that stuff. I think the reason I'm grinning is because there's a lot of vendors out there who get booths and they don't even really take anybody in. They're just like, oh, can I scan your badge? Because they're getting paid, minimum wage to be there. They're not really that happy, and they're like a jaded cop giving out parking tickets. So, oh, can I scan your badge? Can I scan your badge? I'm like, dude, I'm here for an airplane convention. You're selling bars. Yeah, let me scan your badge. So it's like, that's what I mean. And that does happen. So I'm just saying, be aware that when someone's like, can I scan your badge? If you're a consumer, you can go, nah, that's okay. Because everyone goes, yes, because they feel bad. It's like the ultimate social situation, right? Can I scan your badge? You go, no.
Yeah.
No,
I keep mine in my pocket on purpose.
Kind of a big deal.
I left it in the hotel.
I'm saying that way we don't waste the time of the vendors as well. Like, it's okay to say, no, please don't scan my badge, because I'm not looking to get block ice in the shape of a giraffe. I just want to look around and get a new POS system. So it's like, so on that same level, it also cuts back about 50 or 60 emails that you feel bad not replying to. So, I guess the key element here is go the Matt Rolfe way and be authentic.
So Matt, what about you?
A little bit, as the only single guy in the call, I'm a little bit sensitive to the ghosted situation. I've been ghosted a couple times in the last month. I'll figure out this. It's a whole other conversation.
I'm assuming
I'm not upset about it. I'm not.
A lot of married guys get ghosted by their wives, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Matt, I'll be your wingman in San Antonio.
Thanks, buddy. I think there's two things that I always say when you go to a conference, whether you're a supplier, whether you're a speaker, whether you're an attendee. You need to book time after the event to reconcile what you learned, what you took away, what you're going to do with it. So can you give yourself permission to not go to urgent the day after and sit over a coffee or sit with your team? The other thing, when you sit through Monty and Michael's and Scott's session, understand when you go back to your team, they didn't sit through it. So they might not understand your energy. So when you go back excited, it can, even if it's positive, it can freak them out because you've got a type of energy. When I go to a major event like Tony Robbins, I'm literally not allowed in my office for 3 business days because they don't want to see me because I'm full of new ideas. You stay over here till you calm down and you think through with my ADD, your ideas, and put it on a page because we don't want to hear your shit on a Monday morning. So just when you take your ideas and your excitement, remember, you've got to give them the context and the story. You got to have them listen to Scott's recording so they can get up to speed. So you can you can lead it, but they need to have some context to what's happening. Time, context, and then just do something. Do something for you, not for anybody else. Make a small change for yourself, your team, your company, whatever that is.
Yeah, that's good because you've got to absorb that information, right? It's not going to automatically grow and develop if you don't give it time. So that's great. So if you're listening and you haven't made a decision on whether you should go to San Antonio October 27th through the 30th to Bar and Restaurant Expo, let me just tell you there's 3 really good reasons on here. For those of you in Texas, you may see Michael Tips in the future, but he currently lives in Florida near me. So chance to see Michael and listen to his session. You get 2 guys who are not in the U.S. a lot, Matt Rolfe from Canada and Scott Turner from England. And so you have an opportunity to really hear from some of the best, most dynamic speakers, most intelligent guys that I know. And I think that's reason enough to attend. And as Michael said earlier, it's one of my favorite shows, and I think one of the 2 or 3 best shows in the country every year. I like the size of it. It's not as big as some, but it's big enough that you're going to greatly benefit from the amount of people and the quality of people that you're going to see. And so that's awesome. What's the best way to connect with you guys before we jump off this? start with you, Michael.
Oh yeah, just check out mavericktheory.com and all the information is on there to reach out to me or my company or my people. They're great. And just a bit of advice for anyone who's at the San Antonio show. If you have the pleasure of meeting Matt and Scott, they'll be extra nice to you. They have great information, but just be mindful of Scott. If he wants to have coffee or tea with you, say tea. And if he says he wants coffee, then you know he probably isn't that excited about the meeting. Tea with Turner. Tea with Turner is the key. That's like the backstage pass.
Turner, I love it.
Thanks, guys.
100%. And I'll bring my own tea bags. Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. Or audenhospitality.com, and the F&B report that's pulled 2,000 hotels data and stuff that goes with it. It's incredibly useful for any hotelier that's out there to have a look. That's on the website as well.
All right, Matt.
Same for me. LinkedIn's the best way. We put out content and videos almost daily on LinkedIn and mattrolfe.com if you want to check out coaching and opportunities.
Thanks for having us, Mr. Silva.
Oh, my pleasure.
100%.
My pleasure. For me, you guys, if you haven't picked up a copy of my book, Shift Happens is available on Amazon. It's something that took me a couple years. I share some personal stories in there. It's not the most flattering look of myself. There's some dirt I bring out, but it's I wanted to be authentic and share that this is not an easy road, and that if you're going through it, hang in there, because there's always going to be peaks and valleys in the business. And really excited and proud of that book, and excited about being with you guys in San Antonio. And for me, you can get a hold of me on montesilvacoaching.com. Follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.
Thanks, Monty. Thanks, boys. XOXO.
Thanks, Monty.
All right. See you guys in about 10 days.
Yes.
All right.